Three candidates for county sheriff. We're going to start with you, Roger. Our first question. What three qualities make you the best candidate for the next sheriff?
The one quality I've been with the Sheriff's Department for 24 years. I've had another quality. I've had a lot of input and experience with multiple sheriffs on the running of the jail operations. Another one is the leadership of men in the department, overall scheduling and the shifts of the men, making sure everything gets done, looking over reports, accident reports. The list goes on and on, but the major ones are the jail operations and, being chief deputy under multiple sheriffs. I've learned a lot in the last 24 years and can undertake this easily.
Max, what is your three qualities that make you the best candidate for the sheriff?
I have compassion for the public. I have prior military background, which I'm very proud of. And I worked as a supervisor net shape for a Hessel's plant. I had 67 people under me spread out over 3 shifts. I was in charge of the maintenance. I had the scheduling. I can handle 67 people, all the in and out day-to-day details with them. I've had experience with that I feel would take more than take care of the sheriff.
Okay. And Roy, how about you? What three qualities make you the best candidate to be the next sheriff?
I have a very extensive background in law enforcement, same as Roger. 32 years, worked with 4 different policing agencies, currently work at the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy, which houses anywhere from 100 to 200 people in an in-house residential building, and I have an extensive background in police training, certified police instructor, been involved in training many of the very officers that we have in this county since 1989, and I also worked at the same police department and obtained as high rank as the assistant chief for 6 years, a pension secretary for the police department for near 20 years, and I have a personality that's outgoing, very attentive, and enjoy myself being around people, and that's obvious from working with the programs that I have, like Old Settlers Days and youth training programs for kids in the community. Thank you.
Gentlemen, the county has a serious issue with accumulated comp time, and a great deal of that, almost 1,800 hours, is from the Sheriff's Department. What is your plan for dealing with the accumulated time and preventing this situation in the future? We'll start with you, Max.
That's going to have to work off on an annual budget year, annual basis. Not a whole lot you can do about it this year other than try to do the best you can. But in the future, they have an extensive reserve officer pool. I think it would help to try to get what they can out of it, but I'm not in there. I can't backseat quarterback from this position right now. When they have emergencies, they have to cover them. They have to do what's necessary. I'll have to pass it on to the other guys and let them have their say.
Roy, what is your plan for the accumulated time and preventing it in the future?
It's a difficult question because you have X number of men and they're expected to do a certain amount of work, and just how far can you spread it? You can use volunteers, which are your reserves, but you got to remember they're volunteer. And there's some things that just don't have a fix-it. You're just going to have to get in and look at it and see what the future brings you for financial resources. And if your volunteers or reserves are willing to work those extra hours, but you can't overwork these individuals because there is stringent guidelines about working people in critical incident situations like police work, EMS, firefighters. If you work them too many hours in a 24-hour period, then you're endangering yourself and the public again. So again, that is a hard question to answer, how you're going to deal with these things. You won't know until you start working with it.
Okay. And Roger, what's your plan for dealing with the accumulated time and preventing it in the future?
Roy's exactly right. The limited amount of people we've got up there. One thing you got to remember, we've got, after you're there for so many days or so many years, you've got multiple vacation days, you've got multiple sick days. You don't use them, you lose them. So by the time you figure all that up, you've got approximately 28 days per person, county employee, that he's got to use. So if a man's out here working a shift and the last 2 hours something major occurs, he's got to stay and work it. But there are a couple ideas that I am looking at, thinking about. I don't want to really say too much about it because it could affect some scheduling and some other people. But I have been thinking about that. I think it can be lowered somewhat, but it's something we're going to have to deal with.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, we have a two-part question here. Does the county have an adequate number of deputies? And what, if any, staffing changes would you make in this regard? And Roy, we'll start with you.
Do they have an adequate number of officers? From my experience in all the years, Washington County and Salem Police Department both have been understaffed. And people have to understand that and appreciate that. These men are working long hours and asked to work, as Roger was saying. We almost ask them to do things. You get a vacation day, but we're going to make you work extra here. And then there's guidelines that the municipality or the government can use to take that time back away from you. And it's too complicated for me to get into that here in this form. But you've got to keep these men happy, and it's difficult. And when you're running understaffed, so you're going to have to start seeking out other ways to increase your staff. I know that's not popular in the community, but it's a fact of life and truth. And then you have the safety margin. One officer out here in the middle of the night just is not really safe. So I'll just leave it at that and let your mind wander.
Okay. Roger, so what do you think of the number of deputies? Is it adequate? And any staffing changes you'd make in regard to this?
I don't see it changing. We are very understaffed. There's 12 of us, and that's including the sheriff. There's no way that would put a big burden on the county to ask for more deputies. We've been able to do it in the past. We do have reserve officers. We've worked, right now we have over 400 accidents this year. We're almost to 3,000 contact cards, and that's anything above just a regular phone call and a question to be answered that requires a report. But we do have reserve officers, but we try not to use them in anything. They all have jobs, so we don't use them. That will put them in a situation where they have to start taking days off of work to go to court. But they are a big asset. But I don't see us right now. The county can't afford the burden of more officers, equipment to put out there on the road.
And Max, does the county have an adequate number of deputies? And what staffing changes would you make?
In any department, you can always have more people, and especially you look at the overtime hours, but you have limited resources. You have to do what you can with what you got. They've got a pretty good staff right now. They're doing a heck of a job for the county already. Everybody wants to have more, but it's with the realization of what budget you got and what you can do, you just do the best you can with what you got. You can't go asking for twice the staff or anything else to correct all the problems when we're doing a pretty decent job with what we got right now.
Okay.
Is there room for rebuttal or additional?
Not at the moment, no. Okay. The county sheriff does not have to have any law enforcement experience. Is this a good policy in your opinion? And we'll start with Roger.
Something you're not going to change, but I think the more experience you have, the better the sheriff you're going to be. Same way with your chief deputy. I think, he would be required to go to the academy, but I think the more experience you've got, the better off the county will be and the department. The sheriff's the main leader in the law enforcement part of it. I think it's very important that he's got some education in law enforcement.
Roy, how about you?
I think that it's a common sense question, and I believe, yes, the sheriff should have law enforcement experience. But you've got an individual that's going to be the leader and the guide to your sheriff's department, and he's going to be telling the men what to do. What if the men's got training and he don't? The men knows what needs to be done and he don't, and they go to him to have a final answer in a situation, and he looks at them, well, what should you do? It's pretty simple. He don't know, and they do, and it's complicated, and they're looking for a more advanced educated, the better off the sheriff is, the better off he is to answer their questions, or at least if he has years of experience, then he knows who to call to get the answers in a real timely manner. Take somebody like me, I've got people that I can call anytime, night or day. They say, call me, Roy, we'll help you out. It's just because I've been around for a lot of years, I've met a lot of people, and they trust me, and I trust them, and they're willing to help me, and I'm willing to help them. That's what a experienced sheriff is all about.
Okay. Max, how about you?
I'm going to say you don't really have to have the experience if you have the good staff around you. You've got people that's willing to give you the answers you need to have. You have people that's willing to actually enforce all the state laws as they come up, so that the public does feel they're being treated fairly and equally on every occasion. We have state laws such as the public's allowed to be in a public meeting. Well, when they're kicked out, what do you do about it? That needs to be addressed. These are real issues that the public sees and say, well, if it's not something that actually generates money like a seatbelt violation, we're not going to talk about it. These are real deals, just like the PWO board violations that the meetings wasn't done properly. The state says they're entitled to a legal meeting. You have to enforce all the laws, not just the ones you feel like. Good enough for me.
All right, gentlemen, public relations is a very important part of a successful sheriff's department. How will you approach that? And Max, we'll let you lead off.
I think for public relations, you're going to have to let the people see that you're not out there, you're not just trying to fill the jail. We're not doing a dragnet. When the state says .08 is the legal limit for alcohol, that's what the public is entitled to have. I think that they need to know that you're not out here doing things to those that you're not doing to others, and it needs to be fair across the board. And that's what you got to get the feeling that I believe they need a civilian oversight board, so they do feel that when a problem comes up and people's out there saying, well, I got pulled over at gunpoint, that the real story does come out, because it does hurt the officers here when another department does something that's not quite right. And I believe that it's very important that the public get the real story, and when it's not right, that it gets corrected where we can see what's going on.
Okay. Let's see, Roger, you?
Public relations is very important. We've got, and I agree with Max, that, there's a lot of things happen. You see them in the news. Doesn't mean it happens here. Sometimes I think I live at a substation. People come to my house about as much as they come to the jail with their problems, and I enjoy that. Sometimes, they come out with fists flying. It's not as enjoyable, but I have had that happen. I do enjoy being in the public. Anything we can do to help them. We've got the newspapers, the radios, and we try to give them news releases, update them on what we are doing. And I plan on seeing that continue.
Roy, how about you? How are you going to handle public relations?
I think public relations is a cornerstone of any policing agency, especially in today's time. As the gentlemen here are saying, we're losing that communication nationwide, and we're not there here all the way yet, but we are starting to lose some communications. And I don't know if it's overflow from nationwide or it's just the way things are in today's times, but we need to really get on our best progressive mindset and bring back total communication with the public, a two-way street. We'll inform you, you inform us, we all work together, and we can have a better county. That's what we need to do. We need to work together, and people need to not be afraid to call the police, not be afraid to talk to the police. Walk up with an open mind and let the officer work with you with an open mind, and we'll get something done. But if people come into it with a closed mind or chip on their shoulder, automatically the communication ends. So communication is a cornerstone of law enforcement and the safety of our community.
Okay. If elected, describe what a typical day would be for you. And Roy, we will start with you.
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Sure. If elected, describe what a typical day for you will be.
Typical day would be arriving at the Sheriff's Department, checking in with my command staff, see what happened on the shift prior to that, recap what's been going on in the past few hours, see what they know from what they're reporting. A proper day should be, you have a command staff, they should know what their staff under them is doing, because you've allowed them to take charge of 3, 4, 5 people or whatever for the night shift. and they're going to relate to you what's going on. Then you're going to sit down and set out an action plan, figure out how you're going to solve some of the problems that occurred prior to this, how you're going to make that day better, also allow them to know and understand that you're prepared to deal with any new occurrences that are in the upcoming day, and you're going to have to work with their problems, but you're going to have to let them solve their own problems also. They're not going to be any good to you if they're not able to do that. From there, you're going to have to go out and meet the public, visit, do your own thing, not be forgotten, and don't let the public know that you forgot them.
Max, how about you? What would be your typical day?
You just have to take it one day at a time. When I was a supervisor at Net Shape, when I go home, it wasn't the end of the day. When I get a call, the machine's down, if I need to come in for 5 minutes or 30 minutes or 2 hours, whatever it takes, because as the sheriff, you're not on an 8 to 5 clock. You're going to have to do whatever it takes. Some days are going to be longer than others. Some days ain't going to end until the next day. Things are going to happen, and you're just going to have to be available to whatever situation comes up, and depend on your staff to be there and support your staff in getting everything done.
Okay. Roger? What's your day? What will your typical day look like?
A real typical day for the sheriff's department is far between. There's not, they're all different. I've come in at 2 o'clock in the morning at times. The sheriff has been there for several hours. We've worked all night. There is no such thing as coming in at 8 o'clock every morning. Sometimes a day will last 24 hours a day. But as far as your most typical day, if you have a normal day, you can come in, you can catch up on what went on during the night, you can talk to your, like Roy said, you can talk to your head dispatchers, your head jailers. But the biggest part of the sheriff's job is running that jail. You know, he's going to be a lot of trips back into jail, a lot of communication with the jailers. The biggest part of the sheriff's job is running that, operating that jail.
Okay. Has anybody forwarded any questions that you would like to add? None? Okay. I have a question for you, and you kind of alluded to this, Roger. We now have this new large jail up there. Besides law enforcement, what skills is the new sheriff going to have to properly administer and run that new jail system up there? And Roy, we're going to start with you.
I think that in running that jail, you're going to have considerable managerial skills. You're going to have one, you're going to have to pick a good commander to run the jail, and then he's going to have to work with the other people, staff under him. I'm big on command staff. They're going to have to be trained. They're going to have to, and if they're not trained, you're going to retrain them, and they're going to have ongoing training. You yourself will have to have ongoing training because it's an ever-changing world. It's very dynamic, and when you start bringing people into the jail that are from different places in the state, they have different ideas and different ways of living, and you're going to have to be up on all of it. So part of your training is yourself. You're just going to have to keep teaching. You're going to have to keep learning. What you learn, you're going to have to pass on to others, and you're going to have to depend on others outside there that have seen the problems and dealt with them to help you understand the problems you got. So managerial skills are very important, budgetary skills are very important, and you have to have a staff that you can depend on and trust.
Okay. Roger?
Probably in the last year, I've been back there no less than once a week, keeping up with the changes, what's going on. The struggles we've put up with the overcrowdedness has been a lot to learn, probably a lot tougher job with the old jail and what the new jail will be. As far as our jailers and our head people, they've already been trained in what's set forth by the state of Indiana. They've been taking training on the new equipment. I've been back there when they've taught some of the equipment. I think it'll be a lot easier than what a person thinks. It's on the outside. It'll be a lot easier to manage with our jailers, our head jailer, our dispatchers. They've all had the training on some of the equipment back there, and as time goes on, they'll learn more. I think it'll be a lot easier. It can be done. We work with what the county government gives us to work with, and we've done it for the last several years, staying under budget, and we'll continue to do that.
Okay. Max?
I think a big part of your staff, they've got an educated staff already. I like that, and the staff will educate you as anything comes up. You'll have other things come along in depend on your staff to look out for you.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, with that, I have no more questions. Thank you for coming, and we'll move to our next candidate. Okay, I'd like to see